Today I'd like to talk about double tonguing. Now, as flute players, we're often guilty of slipping into double tonguing before we've really had a chance to stretch our single tonguing. So the first exercise you have to do is push your single tongue to see how fast you can get it, and making sure that you really listen to the tonal quality of that single tonguing. Technique practice always tends to come in the same pattern, where we talk about tone, finger technique and articulation. And this is because our finger technique and our articulation are purely dependent on how good our tone is. So if our tone is not so good, then our finger technique and articulation won't sound so good either. So the solid tone production is very, very important. Let's concentrate though now on the double tonguing. There are so many theories about how to practice double tonguing. And I struggled in my early student days with the theory that you should always practice double tonguing quickly, because the ka was a reflex of ta, and you can't practice a reflex quickly. So it took me a few years to realise this was actually bonkers, and it held me back for quite a long time. In order to perfect the double tonguing, you have to practice it slowly. That is the key to good articulation. So, what syllables do we use? There are two syllables that are very common, either t-ka or d-ga. Now, t-ka tends to come out a little bit shorter and d-ga comes out a little bit longer. As with all articulation, we know that the further forward in your mouth the tongue is, the more clear it will be. This is because you're tonguing right where the sound is produced. So, k and g, which are the back of the mouth, are weaker because they're further away. So we need to strengthen those syllables. Now, when you're practicing it quickly then, you can't really concentrate on how you're making the syllable. So when you're thinking about the k or the g, you have to think about throwing it out a little bit faster. So you go t, k, or d, g. So the k and the g, you have to throw forward a little bit, so there's no delay. So they sound at the same time as the t. And this needs quite a lot of work. So we can use so many exercises, but probably a simple scale exercise is the best. I use just a major scale of an octave plus a note, so it becomes a little bit more melodic. And as with all articulation exercises, if we start legato, we can make sure the sound is working before we start to put articulation in. So very slow, ta, ka, ta, ka, ta, or da, ga, da, ga, da. You have to go with the resulting sound, and whichever resulting sound you like best, that's the syllable you use. And from there, we can gradually increase the speed and maybe not repeat 4 times on each note, but maybe repeat twice on each note, until eventually we get to single notes. mixed all those patterns up very, very quickly. So I would probably play the whole of that tap and go bow sequence with one type of articulation and then do the next key in another pattern. So remember, like with all sequence work, keep changing the keys and keep changing the type of practice you do, and then your double tonguing will quickly develop.